shaping up Colorado's election process for all to see. Conspiracy theorists, step right up and take a look. America cannot bury its dead from the last mass shooting before the next one. It's Tulsa, Oklahoma tonight, as the next viewer asks why gun control is never up for a statewide vote in Colorado. The threat of suburban wildfires has the state's second largest city issuing a new evacuation plan. And with the nationwide baby formula shortage, there's something that we can do locally to help. It's a Word of Thanks Wednesday on Next.
Election season sure seems far away, but you know, primary ballots go out next week. Election rigging conspiracy theorists hold the top line on the Republican primary ballot for governor, senator, and secretary of state. Right now, every county in our state's making sure that its voting equipment is ready to count the votes accurately, despite some unsupported claims you might hear from candidates. Politics guy Marshall Zellinger takes us inside the process.
This is our logic and accuracy test. We do this before every single election to test the accuracy of our equipment.
Share this story with your friends who doubt that machines cannot accurately count the votes bubbled in on ballots.
Just come and actually see the process. We'll show you every step of the way.
Every county is required to do what Denver showed us today, a logic and accuracy test.
This is really just to involve the public to kind of verify that we're doing our jobs correctly and that the equipment is behaving as it should.
Here's how it works. Mark, a Democrat, and Steve, a Republican, each filled out 32 test ballots. Those ballots are then scanned into the computer and counted. Then, those same 32 ballots each are punched into the touchscreen tablets as though they had been voted in person instead of at home on paper. Each of those touchscreen ballots gets converted into a printed QR code. Those QR codes are scanned into the computer just like the paper ballots. And if the testing is accurate, they should produce the same results as the paper ballots.
Poll list for governor.
And for one more level of accuracy, the paper ballots are also counted by hand. I'll end the suspense. Each method produced the same results. It just took about an hour longer by hand.
Yeah, weird, right? So that the hand count took longer than us actually scanning the ballots. But yes, that's usually the most time-intensive part of this test.
And that was with a one-page, two-sided ballot. Denver's been known to have ballots that are 3 pages, two-sided.
You can kind of maybe extrapolate a little bit of that to figure out how long it'll take to hand count, which is going to take forever.
This test was not to prove machine counting is better than hand counting, just that machines count correctly. With the test complete, the machines were cleared, reset back to 0, and ready for the June 28th primary. So for your friends who doubt, send them to an elections office to watch. Denver has an open invite.
I wonder why you weren't here if you're doubting that much.
Every county does this same test, including Elbert County, which did it last week. And the election manager, not the clerk and recorder, told me the county had no issues with the test in Elbert County. That means a bubbled-in vote for candidate A on an Elbert County ballot will be read by their machine as, get this, Kyle, a vote for candidate A.
This is fascinating because the leading contender for Secretary of State on the Republican side, Tina Peters, has said that in Colorado, our elected officials are selected, not elected. But nobody's ever provided evidence of that.
And Mesa County has to do this exact same thing, that you do some test ballots, run them through the machines, and make sure that the machine counts them the way you filled them out in the ballot. Every county has to do this before the primary. And if there's something wrong, which there is not in this case in Denver for sure, and in Elbert County for sure, if there is something wrong, it gets resolved before the election. But that's not happening.
We should note in Mesa County that process is overseen by somebody other than Clerk Peters because the judge ruled she can't be trusted around the voting equipment. Marshall, thank you. Tulsa, Oklahoma is the site of America's latest mass shooting. Happened today, just more than a week after 19 school children and 2 teachers were murdered in Texas. NBC News reports that 4 people, including the gunman, are dead at a hospital in Tulsa. Police got the call about 4 o'clock our time. The shooting happened at the Natalie Medical Building, an outpatient surgery center and a breast health center. Police say the shooter went to the building's 2nd floor and opened fire. Investigators are not saying anything at this point about a motive.
Tonight's next question comes to us from Joan, asking whether Colorado could use ballot issues to change gun control laws instead of waiting on legislators.
That's a good question, Joan. Gun control could be a statewide ballot issue. It's just never made the cut. So ballot issues have to get their language approved by a committee to make sure it's fair and accurate. They have to gather enough signatures, and then they have to not get pulled by sponsors because they've either cut some kind of deal or think that they're going to lose. A proposed gun control initiative in 2014 would have banned concealed carry on school campuses. Another initiative floated that same year would have forbidden the confiscation of guns in Colorado without due process. Neither ultimately was on the ballot. That was a good one. Keep the questions coming. Email them to next@9news.com. Denver's plan to deputize civilians to deal with homeless camps is getting new pushback. The community leaders who launched the STAR program, where a mental health professional is dispatched instead of police, they want that new civilian street enforcement team to stay away from them. STAR, sends a paramedic and a mental health pro out to certain calls instead of police. Homeless advocacy groups say the civilian street enforcement team hurts people experiencing homelessness by giving civilians the power to issue tickets to people who are breaking the urban camping ban. The city says that the STAR program and the street enforcement team have been training together for months and that they often are working with each other on calls.
Certainly work in close coordination with one another, because as you can imagine, based on the missions that each one of them has, they, in my view, are complementary services.
Homeless advocates have the opposite view. At this point, the city says the street enforcement team is only giving warnings, no tickets. They're waiting till they get uniforms to give out fines. And the city says it is in the process of expanding its civilian anti-homelessness team. The Marshall Fire is changing the way that Colorado thinks about which of our neighborhoods are at risk to burn. The state's second largest city is creating a new evacuation plan as a result. Colorado Springs is going to ask its citizens to know their zone. Steve Steger talked to the fire chief.
The Waldo Canyon fire in 2012 changed a lot in Colorado Springs.
We definitely realized we could have managed that evacuation better.
Randy Royal is the fire chief. He says immediately following Waldo, emergency officials split the city up.
We had broken the city into 70-some zones. That was done internally previously to make them smaller and more manageable.
The public didn't have access to those zones. They were reserved for emergency responders making evacuation decisions. This year, the Springs is changing things up, expanding to 200 smaller evacuation zones and letting people know where they are, much like you would in a hurricane or earthquake-prone area.
You're going to see a massive public information campaign between the PD, the FD, Office of Emergency Management, and the city in general. That is going to be Know Your Zone.
If you live in the Springs, you're going to become very aware of a system called Zone Haven.
It's used by a number of fire departments and sheriff's departments in California, Oregon, Washington.
If someone decides to evacuate your zone, the system would let you know in 3 minutes.
If you're in that zone, you're going to get those messages and you're going to be able to react to them very quickly.
Chief Royal says he's heard of 2 other communities in Colorado already looking at this system, and he wouldn't be surprised if it catches on.
Because obviously, the Denver area and other parts in Colorado are going to pick up on what we're doing. I bet you there's going to be a big jump in people looking at this.
These zoned evacuations aren't new to Colorado. They're pretty popular in areas that have experience with fire, like Grand County. They have the zones established up there. The difference really is that this system gives the public a view of what's happening in real time. So you can actually look during a fire event, and you can see the areas that have been evacuated, you can see where the fire is on the map, and then you can make your decisions. Hopefully it gives firefighters the tools too to issue pre-evacuation orders in quick moving fires to give people a little heads up.
Give people knowledge, some agencies they can protect themselves.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Steve. The baby formula supply shortage has families calling up Mother's Milk Bank in Denver, asking if they can pay handsomely to get some of that donated milk. That is not how the system works. But that nonprofit that's been saving the lives of newborns in Colorado for decades is working to keep babies in our community fed these days. And we can help with that. This week's Word of Thanks microgiving campaign supports Mother's Milk Bank as they meet the needs of babies and families, whether that's milk or other life essentials. Mother's Milk Bank's first priority is getting donated milk tested and screened and then out to hospitals where babies in NICUs need that milk to live. The nonprofit's next priority is providing milk to babies out in the community who can't tolerate formula. Here's where we come in. our donations will help fund the sliding scale financial assistance so that low-income families can afford the milk. And Mother's Milk Bank will use our dollars for outreach to convince more willing and able mothers to donate surplus milk supply. And while Mother's Milk Bank has long been known for its life-saving donor milk, they have another quieter project. And that's a place where we can also be of assistance to babies and families. The nonprofit has an emergency assistance fund for low-income families bringing home a newborn. Hospital social workers refer in families who are going to need help furnishing nurseries and getting car seats, a lot of the other baby essentials that a lot of families take for granted. Those are funds that can also be used as needed to buy baby formula, and not what Mother's Milk Bank has been known for decades, but it's essential work these days that we can support together. So scan the QR code on your screen or text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491 and I'll send you the link to donate. We know that even $5 adds up quick, so I'll match the first 50 donations of $5. We get it. This is a stressful time for families in need who are trying to feed newborns. Mother's Milk Bank is helping in several ways, and they can do more with our support.
Denver's parks are looking mangy. Last year, the scruffiness was a staffing issue. Parks and Rec explains what's up this year. And kicking open the closet door at History Colorado, a first-of-its-kind exhibit celebrating pride in Colorado. Next.
Low-income families and largely Spanish-speaking communities will soon be hearing from Colorado Parks and Wildlife. They want to let those families know about the Keep Colorado Wild Pass, which will add an extra $29 in fees when people register their vehicles. And in exchange, you get a yearly pass to all the state parks. The state says it's letting those communities know that everyone is able to opt out of that extra fee. We've talked about this here before. Starting next year, anyone who registers a personal vehicle at the Colorado DMV will automatically be hit with a $29 fee, and then you get an annual state parks pass. You can opt out if you know what's up and you say something about it. The money raised will go towards park maintenance, search and rescue programs, avalanche awareness, wildlife conservation, and education and equity programs.
Our powerful spring storm is moving east, so we're saying goodbye to the rain and snow, and with clearing skies, a cool night coming up. Although highs today, 20 degrees below average in the mid-50s for Denver. We're watching as the rain and snow moves east, turning into severe thunderstorms from Oklahoma City up to Minneapolis. Drier air coming in on the backside, so clear skies tonight, sunny day tomorrow, and only isolated storms to track around Alamosa in Trinidad. Temperatures trending back into the 70s both Thursday and Friday. Slight chance of a thunderstorm in the afternoon. 80s for Saturday, 70s for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and late day storms come back into the picture early next week.
That recent wet weather, terrific for our drought, though it's left Denver's parks looking a little frumpy. Next viewers have noticed and asked us about it. Denver Parks and Rec says its people are literally working overtime to try and get parks in shape for summer. Next viewer Joe got in touch wondering about all the weedy parks out there, untrimmed grass, unplanted flower beds. Stuff is certainly green and growing after Denver picked up more moisture recently than we've seen in the previous 8 months. Parks and Rec says it will be out mowing as soon as the grass is dry. They have more than 3,000 acres worth of grass. Parks and Rec says you're likely to see some smaller branches kind of broken and down around town, and that's because they've been trying to focus on clearing the larger, more dangerous storm damage. They also acknowledged that some of Denver parks were looking brown earlier in the spring. That's because of thieves. People stole the copper backflow off of the irrigation risers, more than 24 of them around the city. There's supply chain issues, so the city's waiting on replacements. You also asked about flowers. Denver Parks and Rec did not plant about half of its flower beds during the last 2 years of the pandemic. They had staffing issues. They are planning to bring back all the flowers this year, so that planting is happening now.
The stories, the successes, the struggles of Colorado's LGBTQ+ community on full display.
A lot of headlines from the 1970s. If you just were to change the date to 2022, it still is happening. It's still valid.
Just because it's in a museum doesn't mean it's history. And a rainy traffic jam, not always the worst thing. It's the most Colorado thing we saw today. And it's next.
Just as DIA expands, part of the new area has slowed to a crawl, or at least to a normal walking pace. Tyler sent us a photo of a non-moving moving walkway in the new Southwest Concourse. DIA says this is what happens when sensors get tripped, and they were able to get it fixed tonight. As you have chronicled for us for 5 years now, DIA's busted escalators and moving walkways are somewhat of a legend. Back in 2020, before the expansion, DIA counted 321 conveyances, so that'd be escalators, elevators, and power walkways. Around that time, the airport reported having a few dozen outages a day. DIA insists it works fast to get them running again, usually about a 30-minute downtime. History Colorado has been making an effort in recent years to preserve more recent history. As we begin Pride Month, they're getting ready to share part of their collection from Colorado's LGBTQ+ community. They're putting the finishing touches on the Rainbow and Revolutions exhibits. 50 years of LGBTQ+ communities struggle for equality in Colorado. The exhibit's curator said understanding the history is how we can understand where we are now and where we're headed.
And so this exhibit will really show that, yes, we have come a long way. I will admit that, but we have a long way to go because these protections that you'll see in the exhibit, all these early activists fought for, are under attack again. Marriage equality was a huge win in June 2015, but as we can see with what's going on in the country right now, that could be taken away rather quickly.
That exhibit opens Saturday, runs through the end of the year, then it goes on tour, visiting sites across the state in 2023. Getting in some gardening while you're stuck in traffic? Well, that would be the most Colorado thing we saw today. Christina spotted an ingenious driver during her commute on I-25 this morning. Raining? Just hold your houseplant out the window on the ride home from the garden center. Unless that is a car plant for the Prius. No, actually, no, that's a vehicle ahead of the Prius. Never mind. Is a car plant a thing? Do people do that? Do people keep plants in their car? That seems foolish. I'm obsessed with plants, and I don't have a car plant. That also would seem like a very Colorado thing to me. Send such things via email to next@9news.com or give us a shout on Twitter with the hashtag HeyNext. Some of you reached out, wondering what we as a Next community might do to help families during the current nationwide baby formula shortage. Your answer and your feedback next. At a time when families worried about finding formula for their babies are in the news, we can help a nonprofit that keeps Colorado's newborns fed in a couple of different ways. I'm guessing that you've heard of Mother's Milk Bank. They provide screened and tested donor milk to babies that need that milk to live. You might not know that they also help families afford formula. Our Word of Thanks donations this week will help that longtime nonprofit in our community provide milk at low or no cost to families in need, expand their outreach to bring in more donor milk supplies, and replenish their emergency fund for low-income families of newborns. That fund helps them afford whatever they might need for their baby, which often means formula. If you scan the QR code on your screen or text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491, I will send you the link to join me in donating. At last check, you had raised about $12,000 in 10 minutes' time. Who does that? Well, you do that. You do that just about every week around here. Shanna writes in to say of Mother's Milk Bank, this is one of the best organizations. She says, I always felt like I was doing good. If you have that kind of connection with a nonprofit in our community and you would like to see all of us do some good on their behalf, drop me a note, please, if you would. Next@9news.com is the email, and maybe you'll see them next time.